All right, joining us now is Chair of the Democratic National Committee, Ken Martin. Last we talked with you, you were in the running. Congratulations on your election to that post.
Thank you so much.
One thing I didn't have time to get to with a congressman that I do want to ask you about is this issue of impeachment, because we now have two sets of articles of impeachment against President Trump. He overcame those the last couple of times. In some ways, his supporters will say they draw people to him. What's viewed as something that's, you know, whether you want to take it or not, as an inappropriate attack or an inappropriate use of Democrats' political capital. Do you think members should be wasting time on that?
Look, while some members may be focused on that, the majority of House Democrats and Senate Democrats are focused on standing up to the excesses and extremes of this administration, which is already failing the American people. That's where Democrats' focus is at right now, squarely on making sure that we stand up for hardworking Americans who are being left behind in this Trump economy, which is already failing 100 days in, right? Look, he promised...
Well, wait, let's just talk about some of this, because we talked about this with the panel a little bit. So wages are up. They've beaten two jobs reports expectations. Inflation is down. The market is pretty much settled back to where it was before the tariffs were announced. So this administration feels like they are putting people in a good position. Gas is down, groceries are down, those kinds of things.
Well, that's just wrong. I mean, the reality is most Americans and most economists believe we're headed toward a recession. And the reality
but you don't quibble with those numbers as they exist.
No, look, I mean, here's the reality. The economy is failing the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to lower prices. Prices are increasing.
But inflation's down on a lot of those
He said that he was going to actually have a booming economy. The economy that has shrunk, the GDP shrunk in the first quarter. We actually are seeing a very high likelihood that we're headed towards a recession. Now, look, Donald Trump made a lot of promises to Americans last year, and this budget that he's bringing forward is actually going to increase prices for most hardworking Amerians. The tariffs that he's put on for sure are going to increase prices for the hardworking Americans, that many of them who voted for him. So the reality is that's where we're focused on right now. This budget he's bringing forward, which is going to cut Medicaid, all to give a tax break to the richest people in this country and corporations, and not helping hardworking Americans again.
To be clear, and I know people have a lot of concerns, but he said, he told Time Magazine he would actually veto anything that came before him that was a cut to Medicaid. So obviously we're all going to track that, because that's a promise made that he has made on numerous occasions. I want to talk about some of the inter-party turmoil you're having to referee as the new chair of the DNC. There's this disagreement that's been very public between sort of the old guard, James Carville, the new progressive voice, and David Hogg. People can have appreciation within the party for both of them, but that has been clear. There's an issue. As to reports that David Hogg is raising money to primary Democrat incumbents, Mr. Carville called it, and I will quote, jackassery of the highest level. Have you talked to the two of them about ironing this out as you try to get a cohesive message moving forward?
I have talked to both of them, and let me just say this. You know, we're a big tent party, right? We have a lot of different voices for sure. And, you know, I like David Hogg a lot. I think he's an amazing young leader. But for me, you know, this has always been about making sure that no party boss ever puts its thumb on the scale. In our party primary process, we should stay out. Our job is to be the referee, to call the balls and strikes, to make sure that we actually have a fair and level playing field, so all voices can participate, all people can feel like their candidates they support have an opportunity to compete. No party leader at any level should be putting its thumb on the scale, and it's really important to me. I campaigned on this as I was running for chair. I was the person who brought forward the superdelegate reform in 2017, as well as a neutrality pledge in 2017. It's part of who I am, and so this disagreement right now within the party, it's really not a disagreement. We're going to pass this neutrality pledge because it's a principle that's really important to me. Our party has to be completely neutral. Once the primary voters choose a nominee for us, whether it's presidential or otherwise, we're going to work like hell to support whoever that is. But it's not up to party leaders to choose that nominee.
Okay, I want to talk about this. Ashley Etienne, who used to run an anti-Trump sort of war room for Speaker Pelosi, says they were very effective, and she's worried that Democrats aren't kind of following their policies or some of the ways that the speaker got things done. She said this week that either you or Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries have to take the reins. She said, take the power and say, here is where we're going. She says you haven't done that. Is she wrong?
Well, let me just say this. I mean, there's lots of people with lots of different ideas out there. I'm not here to win the argument. I'm here to win elections. And that's what I'm fiercely focused on right now, is building the infrastructure to do that. Look, we've had 100 town halls in over 45 states just in the last 6 weeks alone because Republicans have refused to listen to their constituents, right? And if they're not going to do their jobs, we'll do it for them. I think the reason they don't want town halls is because of all the pain and the anguish that's being inflicted upon the American people. They don't want people to see that. We're going to make damn well sure that Americans see what exactly is happening to thousands and hundreds of thousands of people's lives throughout this country. And so, no, we're fighting back. Our party, while we're very diverse, of course, our party is unified in making sure that we stand up and deliver on the promises that we've made to the American people. Now, look, I've said this multiple times. We can't just resist Donald Trump. Sure, we have to do that. But we also have to give people in this country a sense of who we are, what we're fighting for, and why. And that means we give them the alternative. We give them a sense of what we would do if we're put back in power. And we're doing both. We're resisting Donald Trump with every fiber of our being because of this existential moment we're in this country. And we're also standing up and giving them a sense of what we stand for.
I quickly want to ask you before we have to go, Kilmer Obrego Garcia, this has gotten a lot of attention. A number of your members have gone to El Salvador or have plans to go. And people that I talk to that are not hyper-partisan or hyper-political, they at home are having a hard time understanding why Democrats are fighting so hard to bring back somebody who was here illegally, has allegations of gang membership that were verified by a police department, then accepted by 2 judges, a woman, his wife, who's made numerous allegations of domestic violence against him, this police stop that shows potentially the suspicion that he was trafficking people. Do you worry that the party has expended so much political capital on that case? Now, we can talk about the legal, and we have, and I think that's important to debate. But the optics of Democrats so invested in that, a lot of folks I talk to cannot understand it.
Well, look, I think the question we need to ask is, are we a nation that values the rule of law and our Constitution and due process? Due process is a critical bedrock principle in this country.
So legal arguments aside, because those are important.
Well, they're
the
very
optics
important.
of this particular person.
Yeah, well, look what I would say. I don't know much about Mr. Garcia, but what I do know is that Donald Trump has been rounding up grad students and sending them, off. He's rounded up legal U.S. citizens, 2- and 3- and 4-year-old kids that he's shipping off to foreign countries.
But again, we have to speak factually about that. This was a situation in which the mother, who was here illegally, was allowed to decide what she wanted. She wanted to take the children with her. They weren't deported. They're U.S. citizens. They can come back.
Let me just say, we have to focus. One thing we probably agree on in both parties is we need a path to comprehensive immigration reform, and we need to have strong border security. Both parties agree on that. We need to come to the table in a meaningful way to address this. The way that Donald Trump has approached this has been so haphazard. And, no, I don't think the optics are bad. And standing up for our Constitution, the rule of law, and due process. Every person in this country deserves due process, and that's not what's happening under this administration.
Listen, if you can broker a deal on immigration, I think all of Washington would be very impressed. Chairman, good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.